Now, people around the world, let me pose you a quick question. What happens when you combine two Wiimote controllers, the tablet design of the Wii U pad, and the willpower of a Nintendo GameCube? Well, the definition of a controversy, that's for sure. The Nintendo Switch, ladies and gentlemen, the latest and currently oldest Nintendo console to boot, is the discussion for today. While many have longed for this day to come, I personally felt like my days were numbered. And now, after turning 6 whole years this past March, the Nintendo Switch is truly a console that speaks volumes to the creativity of what a console could become, resulting in tapping into the energy that they never really used for the Nintendo Wii U back in the day and poured their heart and soul into, giving us a console that has stood out truly to the testament of time as well as sales. Oh, holy hell, Nintendo sure as hell made a profit out of this little guy for sure. Knowing that the topic in question here is the Nintendo Switch, there obviously needs to be a holistic approach in terms of presenting the hybrid console's overall quality. While many throughout the years have presented its flaws, in all honesty, the Nintendo Switch is still a great console despite what Pokemon Scarlet and Violet has to say about it. Yeah, this game has poor performances, but hey, don't hate the game, hate the player in this case. Now, don't get me wrong, there are issues with this console, as I'm sure there are with other big boy brands out there like the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, but for what the Switch has offered since the start of its reveal and release in March of 2017, it has gathered a strong and ridiculous catalog of games in each respective franchise. I mean, the Switch launched with The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, so you can't really tell me this console was off on a bad foot when Scott the Wasp pointed out the failures of the Wii U in its first 2 years, okay? And since then, the Nintendo Switch just popped off, presenting new and revolutionizing ways to not only play your favorite games on the go thanks to the handheld design it was crafted in, but it just gave people incredible experiences in the long run. Plus, despite what we have to say about frame rate or performance and all that techie jargon, the Nintendo Switch in general did something new and refreshing, and that alone garnered so many points for me and other Nintendo fans out there, as we've longed for something unique while still sticking to the good old roots from the previous generations. Its design is also one of the coolest things to see in the video game industry too. With a sleek design for the screen and the two Joy-Cons just being slapped on the sides, it definitely feels like a modern gaming tablet that can be taken on the go, which was a major complaint with the Wii U's gamepad back in the day. Now, with this little guy, the possibilities are endless, and the weight and feel to it is just perfection in my eyes. But of course, the Joy-Cons could use a little hand grip here and there, since after holding it for too long, it can cause a little bit of some arthritis and finger pain. But hey, good thing there's a market of handheld grips out there that can alleviate this pain, am I right? With that in mind, we gotta give credit where credit is due for this console, as it basically became the odd man out, and while Sony and Microsoft were too busy one-upping each other with sleeker designs and better performances, the Nintendo Switch was basically already giving people fun adventures to play on your TV screen or even on the go. I mean, with the catalog of games it has at its 6-year disposal, the Switch surely knows when to provide high-quality gaming for its fan base, but of course, keeping in mind that we also have a long list of negatives to tackle with this thing, well, you already know where this is heading. Now, let's start discussing the problem, shall we? As a quick disclaimer here, no, I won't be discussing much about the games this console has or even the Nintendo Switch Online as much as you think I should, since I figured that after a while, the NSO has fairly shown itself to be a capable version of the Virtual Console, despite of course many people wanting a Virtual Console for many years, hell, me included. Sure, for $50 a year you can get a nice old gaming collection, be it NES games to even now Game Boy Advance titles with multiplayer into the mix, which did sound like a problem back then as it was like justifying the price for it, but I think nowadays it's more of a nice little perk when compared to other memberships out there. Yeah, I'm definitely looking at you, PS Plus. With the NSO of today here, I don't mind it a bit. Obviously, the emulation could use a little bit of tweaking here and there, but for the most part, for what it has offered, it is kind of worth the price of admission. That being said, there are indeed several other issues with the Nintendo Switch, whether it's from hardware to software and minor stuff in between, starting with the simplest but most warranted problem being lack of a customization, or should I say, the Switch kinda looks boring. Now look, there are cool Joy-Cons in the bunch that you can get for the system externally, notwithstanding the whole Joy-Con drift issues that come with it, either by spending an additional $300 for a whole new system like we saw with the bundles for Tears of the Kingdom, Skyward Sword, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and even Fortnite. God, Nintendo 2018-2019 was just built different, wasn't it? But in terms of the UI and software, this is where generally people have a gripe with the Nintendo Switch, mainly due to the limits of customization that you have with the system. system, which is just turning the lights on and off, and ooh, you can now make folders. There really is no unique individual factor that defines the player and their experiences here with the Switch besides of course its external design, and I just wish that they honed in on what the PS4 did with a plethora of cool themes and ideas to showcase their IPs, and even with what the PS5 is currently doing where it shows a theme for the game you click on. Hell, even with its previous handheld rendition, the new Nintendo 3DS had some cool themes to unlock and showcase as you went scrolling around for the next game to play, and this allowed the connection between the user of the system and the experiences they've shared with it. Something like that would have been cool to see for the Switch for sure, seeing some cool Zelda background themes here and there, or a cool and dynamic Smash poster background, to even something as minimalistic as a bunch of Mario icons scattered about. This would have defined the creativity of the Nintendo Switch, as well as customizing it to the style of the user, because you have to remember, this gaming console can be used on the go. Themes are small and minor, but they're kind of like that snowball effect where it kind of showcases all the other problems that the Nintendo Switch has for other people out there, which speaking of that, I think it's time to talk about the hardware. Get it? Because it's a helmet and it's a play on words on like the next topic we're going to discuss, you know, like a hardware. The Switch is hard. Yeah, this is all I got. Though it's fun to explore through Hyrule recently in Tears of the Kingdom, or go back to another space mission with Samus Aran and Metroid Dread after 19 long years, to even going back in time with Pokemon Legends Arceus and seeing the possibilities of a next-gen Pokemon title, there are of course the limitations surrounding these games that makes the Switch feel more of an anomaly that managed to work wonders for video game experiences. Thus enter the hot debate of the hardware limitations that the Nintendo Switch has been getting since its 6-year run, which at first glance you would be confused to see why this was a thing in the first place, but now after being jaded and growing up with this console, yeah, you kinda have to agree with the idea that the Nintendo Switch does limit itself tremendously in terms of performance and graphical fidelity. Now, I'm not saying that the performance rate on the Switch is bad, but it is something that for a while made me and many fans of the system out there wonder if the Switch was being pushed to its limits or not, and if it was, then what exactly were those limits, Nintendo? Sure, there are good looking games out there for the system, like Super Mario Odyssey and its vibrant color palette and art direction, Bayonetta 3 pushing the realities of the Unbridden Witch to an all-time max, along with Astro Chain and its ability to expand the horizons with world building and character designs, to even Splatoon 3 and how funny and upbeat it continues to trend of what makes Splatoon a part of the Nintendo charm. But in terms of what could be is still in the minds of those who own a Switch. I mean, when you take a look at how PC gaming has evolved throughout the years, you can see that players expect higher frame rate and better performances to be made, and the Nintendo Switch is often regarded as a laughingstock in terms of these tech-savvy concepts. Essentially, people want their games to look and feel good, and while the Switch does offer that, people will still shrug at it and just say, but my PC can do it better, which oftentimes has happened, and then emulation begins to increase at an all-time high. But these problems are often dependent on the person, as in my case, I don't find any of these issues with my Switch in terms of these performances. Sure, to someone with a 5-year-old Switch might see these issues, but really this is all a preference at the end of the day. In fact, while most of what I stated are problems that most Switch players find from time to time, such as the infamous Joy-Con drift, the simple lack of customization, at the end of the day, these are all matters of preferences that oftentimes get sucked into a vortex that results in debate and discussion. Could the Nintendo Switch be a better performing console in terms of graphics and hardware? Absolutely, but at the same time, that would come at a cost of limiting the handheld gimmick the console is meant to market, and then result in your hands becoming volcanic ash as the inner fan of the system will start to combust. And yeah, there's also the Steam Deck, which is made to mimic the makings of the Switch for PC gaming, but even that has its own limitations in terms of which games are optimal for handheld gaming, something that the Switch doesn't have, considering it's entirely built with that idea in mind. All I'm really saying here is that while there are some clear-cut problems with this system, most of the time they kind of come down to the idea of what could have been the case, which most of the time it results in sheer disappointment and a massive rabbit hole down Nintendo Twitter. Oh, I'm sorry, Nintendo X. I forgot the whole rebrand situation here. Plus, you gotta keep in mind that for 6 strong years, this console has done so many incredible things in terms of enabling something different for players to experience and enjoy, and it doesn't surprise me at all to see the Switch be the most thriving and influential console on the market. Look at sales alone and you'll see that practically everyone nowadays owns a Nintendo Switch, and everyone of all ages are expressing their joy for the console. It just works for casual players and the diehards of gaming that the Wii U failed to do back in its heyday, and has inspired many in the gaming industry to try this hybrid hybrid style of hardware development. Be it with the platforming of Mario Odyssey to the open world adventures of Zelda to even the revival of the 2D Metroid franchise, the Nintendo Switch really did it all without much compromise. At least that's what I think. I don't know about you guys. And we can't forget the talks of a Nintendo Switch 2 is on the horizons here, so while pointing out the flaws of this rather well received console, it is also good to see these flaws as improvements for what the next Nintendo system may bring, either better performance, graphical design, or just new ideas to the table that I just hope won't be too gimmicky. But hey, this is Nintendo after all. When have they never tried to put a gimmick in their consoles in recent years? But I think that's really all the problems with the Nintendo Switch here, and while you can agree or disagree to what the console brings as a whole to the table of video game industry, well, you do have a comment section down below for a reason, so use it. As for me, well, I sure as hell am glad to experience this console as both a teenager and also a young adult that's out there into the machinations of the world, especially since it kinda is a little bit hard to adult nowadays, but I'm just glad that this thing gave me good games and great experiences along the way. Plus, we can't deny that this year, quality gaming was mostly on the Nintendo Switch here, and I mean, they gave us Tears of the Kingdom, easily a 10 out of 10 for me, and Game of the Year winner. Yeah, suck it, Final Fantasy 16 fans, I said the truth.